Live from Jackrabbit Slim's, this is Derailed Trains of Thoughts. So, welcome folks to Derailed Trains of Thought.
I thought we'd go out to eat for our podcast this time.
Yeah, as long that couple in that corner over there, they look a little skittish. So hopefully this will be a safe outing.
Most places we go to aren't, so
yeah, we have bad luck in that. I think.
I think we need to pick a safer place sometime.
Yeah, definitely. So hi folks, it's been a little while.
We've been surviving and trying to bring you podcasts occasionally.
Occasionally. We won't go into a full-fledged project update, but Nick, you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to?
Just been finishing up teaching school, both my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in their final project, and then also grading, well not really grading, but commenting on Taylor University's fancy writing classes book proposals, which has been fun, but time-consuming.
Cool. Very cool.
And also random projects that we can't talk about yet.
Yes. I know we keep saying that they're out there, and they really are.
They are, really. Soon.
It's a long-term sort of thing.
Yeah.
But as for myself, I don't know if I mentioned on here on podcast, but I'm working for a hotel right now, and also working for my church and doing little videos that they come up with for me to do. This past month has been particularly full of them. And plus, by the time this podcast comes out, my sister will have gotten married. So
exciting, yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, it's been fun getting ready for that and all the brouhaha.
Brouhaha, great word. My Jewish high school algebra teacher always used the word brouhaha.
And I've remembered that since, because I know you use it a lot.
I use it a lot. Yes, I do.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get right into our story school. Our story school today is a little bit different in the fact that it's about words that we'd kind of rather not use. But
so we're doing a word-only podcast about words we don't want to use.
Kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, basically. But the topic is profanity and how it's used in stories and whether it should be used in stories. And I guess we should start off with this right off the top of the bat. Nick swears all the time when we're not actually recording.
Yeah, I know this is PG podcast, but like a sailor otherwise. So
yeah, okay, not really. No. But it has been clear before now, being Christians, it's kind of not really part of our belief system to use a lot of language.
And not part of our background either. I mean, we didn't come from families where that was
common.
Common, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, I think there's a very good reason besides just, religion and heritage. I mean, for me, it's always been kind of like, if you have to rely too much on swear words, then it kind of shows a very limited vocabulary. Especially since, like, in some movies, it seems like the F word can be used for a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb.
I think I've seen it dissected somewhere for, like, a dictionary.
Yeah.
Actually, I think my sister had a roommate who could tell you the different ways it was used. But... Oh, I'll throw this out here. I had to get in sometime. I once had the observation that if Jack Bauer from 24 can go through 7 or 8 of the worst days anyone has ever had and never once use the F word, I think there's probably ways to get around it.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But our own perspectives on that doesn't necessarily translate to the characters that we write about. So then it does make this a relevant question.
Yeah, I remember, and I don't know where I stand now. Well, back in college, I had this discussion with one of my friends about, he was trying to figure out whether he would use, some swearing for these people he was writing, because they were inner city sort of people, and he thought they would. And at the time, at least, I said, well, I wouldn't use it except when they really meant it. Meaning, like, when the word... I don't know. I'd like it, just peppering it. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason for that. It just seems not necessary. But I can possibly, not that I would ever, I don't tend to write this way, but if it's a very realistic story, mm-hmm. I could see putting in there as long as it's going to actually mean something. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I think that's the key for Christian storytellers, particularly, whether it means something. Now, you're gonna have some people who are from those backgrounds and gonna say that's not realistic if you don't have it. Like, I know the actor filmmaker Kevin Smith, who does Jay and Silent Bob and Dogma and a whole host of other movies that I wouldn't go see, but he has said because he uses a lot of swearing in his movies, and he's like, hey, that's just the way people talk. And I'm always kind of thinking, well, that may be the way you talk, but it's not necessarily the way my culture talks.
Well, it comes into that discussion we've had, at least we've touched on before, is what's the purpose of writing? Is it to reflect culture, or is it to kind of shape it into a certain version of life?
Right.
And at least my style tends to be, I'm not realistic. I'm not trying to transfer life from one, onto the page. I'm trying to rearrange the pieces of life into some sort of different shape.
So so you can see life in kind of a new way.
So I don't feel, I've never felt much need to be realistic, I guess. You can't see my air quotes on the podcast, but for my listeners. I remember one time writing this story. It was called The Empty House, short story. It's about this lady. She's cleaning out her dad's house who just died. He had Alzheimer's. She was really angry at him. Had a lot of anger issues. It's very simmering, and then this incident happened. I kind of wanted her to use some sort of swear word to kind of communicate that. And of course, the one I use is like, something that most people wouldn't even, blink an eye at. But, and so I wrote it that way originally, but I thought it worked. And then later on when I revised it, I felt it wasn't necessary. I've almost edited out even of the ones I've tried it in.
Oh, interesting.
Since. And I think that's personal preference. I'm not sure the story was wrong for having done it. But about the only time I've used, anything like a legitimate swear word, I think, would be in Local Man Struck by Lightning Survives.
Okay.
And it's not really in the same version. It's damn, which, is hardly, on anyone's radar now. You can be like a G movie and get away with that. But
it kind of seems that way.
But I used it in its real religious terminology simultaneously with the kind of the anger sort of
Sure.
way, because he was damning God to hell.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
It is, and it's hard. I mean, I don't know that there's really a hard and fast rule for whether you should or should not. Because I mean, I know I had a character say "damn" in Destroyer at one point, but it was kind of hard not to because I mean it's a monster story with a cop. There's like buildings falling around people and things are on fire all around and. I mean, when you're in very intense situations, it does become that people naturally do that, and there's a difference from punctuating moments as opposed to having it peppered throughout.
And I think I'm most comfortable with that. I don't know, I don't have a need of it, but I wouldn't have anything against it in my own writing. I don't think. And watching movies, language doesn't bother me if it's just randomly like that, or like Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Okay, makes perfect sense when you're running away from this monster. It's almost not so much a word as an expression of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get into, Goodwill Hunting territory or...
your smaller dramas.
Where like just, they don't know any other words. It's like, there's got to be a better way to write that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting kind of on the border was District 9. Do you ever see District 9?
No, I never did.
Okay. Some of the situations, understand why I would use that, but like repeatedly, like... He'll F-word like 3-4 times in a row, and luckily he had this but he had a pretty strong accent, so it didn't come off quite as harsh on the ears. Personal preference, F-word is one of the ugliest words of the English language.
It really is.
I mean, just the combination of letters themselves, even without the meaning, is just.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it kind of monsterizes what is meant to be a very beautiful act in a sense. It is a very dirty word in every sense of the word.
I don't know that I would have much. Well, just because I don't have any cultural contact with it normally in my life. Maybe I'm just very naive, but I don't see. I wouldn't ever use that word. I could see using most other curse words, maybe. Yeah,
and I think it really does come down to a lot of your surrounding work. I know there's one movie called Swing Kids.
Okay.
Which is about teenagers in Germany that like swing music, American stuff, jazz, but they're being pressured into joining the Nazis, and they're dealing with a lot of brainwashing, and basically the two main characters are forced into becoming part of like the whatever the boy, not Boy Scouts, but
the Hitler Youth.
Yeah, the Hitler Youth. Thank you. And at first they're both kind of resistant to it, but one of them kind of starts getting more and more brainwashed into following Nazi thinking. And there's probably there might be some minor swear words in it, but there's no F words until a moment where kind of the two friends are at a turning point, and one of them finally kind of says to the other, "You're becoming an effing Nazi."
Yeah.
And he says the word, and it's actually a very powerful moment. And I think that word actually there had a lot of punch to it, because now it wouldn't have had the punch if it had been used throughout it. It would have like it's just another thing.
And so that's to me the rule is only use it when it's really going to stand out, which is kind of a weird way to talk about profanity, but
yeah, especially like you said, like when it's just being like if you don't know any other word, then it again loses kind of any purpose.
Yeah, like any sort of flavoring.
Yeah.
In writing, I read and I heard and then I saw it that apparently the Lost writers in their screenplays use the F word constantly.
Yeah, which is interesting.
As a punctuation, I guess the one explanation I heard, I think from one of the writer read somewhere, was that because they're writing in L.A. and it's in Hawaii where it's filming, that they, there's always all this emotional stress and everything in the characters and all the booms of twists and stuff, that they use that almost like a way to communicate underlying stuff, which I don't know if I buy that. I don't know. It seems, I don't know. I haven't actually read an entire script like that, so I don't know if it works or not. I think it would turn me off.
It does seem like kind of a cheap shorthand.
I maybe when you're writing things in in a week, maybe I don't
stressful
know.
deadlines. Yeah,
but yeah, I don't get in writing. I really don't get the use of using it most times, very often.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, occasionally, I think like I remember reading a Tom Clancy book and it's the military and it's a tense situation. Okay, military, so okay, makes sense.
Right.
But
I mean, I guess then the question is,
like more than 10% of your script is swear word is too much.
But I guess here's the question thing I had. If someone sees a work of yours that has swearing in it and they know you're a Christian, is that gonna turn you off? I mean, some Christian readers it would turn them off. It's like, how dare you include such words and you claim to be this person?
I see. I don't know that I would worry about that.
You don't tend to worry about your audience.
I don't tend to worry about my audience. No, but on the other hand, I think the thing is, and I bring this up in a number of our conversations, it's your artistic honesty. Between you and God, what are you writing?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you're writing it for a Christian audience, you need to take that into account.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna offend people's sensibilities. No use, cause people to stumble for no good reason. But if it's, if it fits the context and you're writing just a
for a general audience,
I mean, again, now if all your work did that, you might have a question. I remember reading somewhere, and I thought it was really a pretty intelligent way of looking at it, is that a Christian's body of work should hopefully appear Christian in the themes, but individual pieces might not.
And that's an interesting point, because I mean, like, say people like not Dorothy Sayers, there's a woman, woman who writes Southern Gothic stuff.
Yeah, Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah, Flannery O'Connor. I suppose if you took some of her stories into a wrong sense, I mean, I've never actually read her books, but from what I understand, they involve a lot of darkness and stuff. And you could take that in a certain sense and say, well, you're just saying that you're saying that the darkness is a very prevalent thing. Whereas I guess she had a greater purpose to what she was doing.
Yeah, she was using. I don't remember her explanation. Again, I'm not an expert in Flannery O'Connor either.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I think that's possibly the thing. Context, and then if you're doing it all the time, I would ask why. What's your purpose? I mean, unless for somebody you're trying to communicate to people who think I don't know. Again, it's very foreign to how my cultural surroundings. Because I'm just not in those situations where that seems even remotely natural.
And like in the stories you write, like your fantasies, it wouldn't really be all that necessary.
Now here's a question: are fake swear words bad? Meaning, for instance, not really swear. Well, I guess in context, like "eternal night" is kind of this like phrase you shouldn't say in Strand and Fred.
Oh, is it?
I mean, Fred says, and every once in a while someone will say, "Don't say," It's kind of a crude, I mean, it's not. I'm not sure what you would compare it to, but it's certainly not proper for a Horizon person to be saying. I fell in love with this sort of thing reading Real Time because one of the main characters, Matt, he would always say "blood and bloody ashes," which I thought was a fabulous way to express emotion, and it didn't affect me at all.
See, I think it's very natural to use not pejoratives, but the like.
Explicatives?
Explicatives.
Like exclamatives.
Exclamatives, yeah. Or like
exclamations.
Something like that. Yes, we know our vocabulary. That comes out just very naturally.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun to have just really quirky things that come out that way.
Yeah, like I read a really interesting one.
Well,
or like there's another person in Wheel Time that swears like a sailor apparently, but they'll say stuff like things involving like mothers, like boil you in your mother's your goat's milk or something. I mean, just ridiculous things. But apparently in the context of the world is right. You don't say that.
Yeah. Well, and like some science fictions, like I know Farscape. And I think Battlestar Galactica have their own made-up swear words that they use.
Well, Natasha's point, I was saying we were going to be talking about profanity. She said, make sure you mention Firefly, where they swear in Mandarin.
Oh, that's true.
So that's a nice way to get around. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to get around it that communicate in fantastical settings.
Yeah.
That get across the emotion without having to use the word itself. Now, I know some people think anything said in anger is swearing. I've heard that before.
Really?
Like, if you say fudge or...
really? Or like
fiddlesticks. Or
see, I say fiddlesticks all the time.
I know, and I mean, I don't quite get that. I mean, I guess if in your head you're thinking the one and you're just saying the other, okay.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah,
but to express anger is a human thing. It's just the vulgarity, I think.
Yeah.
Is what we're worried about.
And I know sometimes that can be a generational thing too, because I remember seeing someone posting on Facebook saying, "Why do kids keep saying frick or freaking?" Like, as we know what they're replacing it, what word is replacing. It's like, well, sort of, but I'm not necessarily thinking of the other word when I say freaking whatever.
But I guess here's a question: why is profanity bad?
Well,
I mean, we just assume it is.
Well, I think there's a vocabulary thing for one thing, but I think and some people like Craig Ferguson will make fun of why do we make up words that are automatically taboo? But I think that there's something innate about a swear word that connotates something of the worst of the world. Like you said, the F word is just an ugly word. It's nasty in context, it's nasty in sound, pronunciation. And whichever swear word you're talking about, you're using a very pessimistic description on the world in general. And sometimes even like if you're directing at a person, at the other person.
And you have a lot of this, there's a lot of emotional baggage with these words, which is why they become swear words.
Right.
They have a certain amount of vulgarity, a certain amount of... It's like you're trying to express all the basis stuff in a word.
I know in social sciences classes or like sociology, there's still discussion about like using the N-word in like movies and stuff. Because people use that phrase, historically. And sometimes like comedians will use it in a very ironical kind of sense. Yeah. But to what extent is it, even if it was used historical, to what extent is it still too hurtful for people to actually use?
Yeah, I do. I guess the societal connotations matter because words, as writers, words mean things.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And words sometimes mean different things at different times.
This is true. Yeah.
Well, often, and I guess you take out those words that in the culture mean the worst and basest things that don't build up at all. They don't even move plot forward. They're just all the garbage coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, just like you said, like the F word is just like a total debasement of what's supposed to be something really pure and wonderful and pure, and just kind of making it the worst thing it could be.
My wife also told me that I had to mention the middleman. Who he's like a Boy Scout. He doesn't, he does. One time his partner's using all these words, and he's like, do you talk to your mother with that mouth? Do you kiss her with that mouth? Because she just, all this beep, 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 beep. But he'll replace things, and he'll say stuff like, flowers for Algernon, and, wings of the Luftwaffe, and, just ridiculous phrases.
You better explain, because almost no one knows what middleman is anymore.
Middleman, I know, or did, even when it was on. The Middleman was this TV show, I think it was on ABC Family, the middleman's this kind of, I guess, kind of like a superhero. When aliens and monsters and stuff shows up, he takes care of it. He's the middleman between the people and the incidents. And he's very Boy Scoutish. His favorite drinks milk. He drinks milk, and he has this very Dudley Do-Right sort of personality.
Right.
I gotta ask something.
Yeah.
How can a Navy SEAL not cuss? I mean, you're all darn and jeepers and criminy. What's up with that?
Profanity cheapens the soul and weakens the mind.
Jumping bananas, we're in Dutch.
Well, dag diggity.
Hot diggity dog. The possibility of worldwide zombie pandemonium is just too gosh darn high.
Let's kick the tires and light the fires.
Sands of Zanzibar. You see an office building?
Hawks of the Luftwaffe, that's it, you've cracked it!
Like one time, his partner said something. He's like, "My Little Pony," like this. So it was a very humorous way of communicating, shock and dismay and stuff.
This is a complete side note, but My Little Pony has made quite the resurgence.
That's true.
Have you heard about that?
I know vaguely about it. I've not heard a lot about
Apparently, like, one of the main writers was a writer for Powerpuff Girls, which if you've ever seen that, it's a very clever show.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls was fun.
So, yeah.
Jojo. Which also reminds me, I need to see this documentary when it comes out called I Know That Voice. Have you seen the preview for that?
No, I haven't.
It's a documentary about voice actors.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
And it was fun because I'm watching the preview, and there's this, 90-year-old lady. And I'm like, okay. And she starts talking, and she is Rocky J. Squirrel.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was awesome.
That's June Foray.
Yeah. I didn't know anything. I didn't know her. I'm like, so just seeing this face and hearing the voice, we're like, whoa. And then, the guy who does SpongeBob is on it, and Bender from Futurama.
Okay, yeah, that'd be
and
really cool.
And the girl who does Bubbles.
Oh, okay.
And also this other guy from another cartoon.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So I want to see this documentary when it comes out.
That'd be a blast. But that's a huge side tangent.
Yeah, yes.
We have to live up to our podcast name sometimes.
Occasionally, yes.
Yeah. But
so I think that's
it
all we've got.
Yeah, that seems to be about all we got. I'd say use it sparingly. Have a reason for it if you have to use it.
I will mention that sometimes certain movies, after I'm done watching and start recommending to people, completely forgot there was language. Like it doesn't stick in my head normally unless it's just relentless.
Yeah, there's like usually an internal censor in my mind that you just kind of forget about it.
And then you show it to someone like, oh yeah, there's all these words. I'm sorry. It's like watching Super 8.
Yeah,
it's just full of profanity, but I don't even think about it because it's kind of just kids being ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I would never want my kid to be like that.
No, it's true.
But somehow, in the way it's delivered, it just
it's
almost like music.
Yeah. Some people view swearing that way.
It
has a rhythm to it.
It has a rhythm and a sound, and not so much a meaning.
Right.
And I suppose for some people, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And none of this is to really judge people who do swear on a regular basis. I mean, I understand if you're in an environment that does it all the time. It is because I know if I've been watching something that has a lot of it, then I start it kind of runs through your mind a little bit too much.
I think for a lot of people it stops meaning anything.
Yeah.
And then it offends people who it still means something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. We talk about them being very derogatory words, very pessimistic words. Other people would be like, they're just words.
It's like
yeah. Yeah, exactly. But words have consequences.
And they should have consequences. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes words just mean whatever we make them mean. We shoehorn them in.
Yeah. Well, English language, if nothing else, is very pliable.
Well, and it should. I'm not against it changing, but I think sometimes we abuse it. Yeah. Well, sometimes I abuse it. I'll use words that don't mean that until I use it. So, not quite the poet.
So, all right. That's our story school. A little shorter one, but that's all we got.
That's all we've got.
All right, so let's move now into our soundtrack. I wasn't even really going to try to correspond. I mean, there are some OC remix songs that have profanity in them, and Nick has got an example of that at the end of the show.
I'll be like Curse Like a Sailor, so.
Yeah. But I just decided, I'm just going to go with a song I like and not necessarily worry about the podcast topic at all in this case. But Nick and I have been very slowly trying to go through an OC remix listen. That's because I say slowly because I honestly don't get around to listening to it all that
And
often.
I'm just sitting in my office all day listening to music. So
Yeah. But so we're trying to go through the whole OC remix library, and one thing I like about some of the early stuff is that it's very simple.
there's a lot of simplicity,
Yeah, I mean,
and some of it's good, simple, and some of it's like you could have done a little more with this.
it's true, and I mean, I like the more complex stuff. Like OC remixes songs have gotten very intense, in terms of production quality. But I like some nice simple songs like this one. This is an old McVaff song. From back in 2000. Looks like this was posted December 2000.
Wow.
Remixed from the game Soul Blade, which I've never played. This is Jazzer Soul. And it's just one of these songs. It's got a very simple loop, but it's very catchy.
It's ridiculously fun to listen to.
Yeah, nice, easy listening. So I hope you enjoy. welcome back.
Yes, it's
We're back.
we're back. I was going to say something.
Well, we during that song there is a whole hold up for a little bit. It was kind of touch and go.
yeah.
There,
Tim, next time let me pick where we're going, okay?
okay, fair enough.
Okay.
But now we'll go into our next segment, our take.
On Tails.
So, Nick, why don't you go first this
Oh,
time?
man.
Well, I kind of have this. The one I'm going to talk about is a little unorthodox, so I
Yay
kind of
for
want to.
unorthodox.
Yeah, so I want to talk about it in a little unorthodox manner.
Well, let's see. I was trying to see what I had watched and or read that was like not something like everyone else on the planet, Avengers, has already seen or watched. And I couldn't really think of anything. I'd been reading Taylor stuff and things like that. So Avengers, awesome, yay.
Once Upon a Time.
Once
awesome.
Upon a Time was very. I thought about talking about that because it's very entertaining.
Very nice season finale.
It was a very nice season finale, and Rumpelstiltskin is always awesome. And I feel so. I shouldn't feel that bad for the Queen, but
I know
until the end, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I guess I won't know so much talk about something as little one. I have actually, and Tim doesn't know this, finished yet another DS game.
Oh, really?
Like I actually completed a video game.
Wow, how did you have time to do that?
Well, it started like 2 years ago.
Okay. Was another Professor Layton?
It was not Professor Layton. It was Miles Edgeworth, which is kind of a spin-off from Phoenix Wright.
Oh, okay.
Very lawyer, people have testimonies and you find the contradictions by presenting evidence,
I've always been curious about what those games are like.
Actually, it was quite entertaining.
It's amazing what sort of things Nintendo or people who work with Nintendo can make interesting. Like a lawyer game?
I know.
Really?
And I don't know how it compares, if it's the same setup as Phoenix Wright, because I haven't played Phoenix Wright. But this one, basically, you do an investigation of a crime scene, you look around and point out, you'd examine the scene, find evidence, and then connect logical pieces. And
So is it sort of a DS equivalent of a kind of a point and click sort of thing?
only the investigation stage, and there's a lot of rebuttals where someone will give a testimony of why they killed or why, they'll accuse this person of killing so and so, and then they'll have 4 reasons, and then you have to point out evidence to show why this is a contradiction. So it's all about kind of showing where the logic breaks down places,
okay.
or where the logic exists. And it's in 5 episodes of this overarching story. And what I was really impressed with, it did not have the sort of emotional end that Layton did. The Professor Layton and the Unwound Future, fabulous ending. But what I was really impressed with was the final episode. It was kind of like the culmination of the previous 4. It set up all these pieces, all these things. And it was this massive episode. Very complicated. Lots of pieces that you find out in 3 different kind of motives that are all being intertwined that you slowly untwine. And I was really impressed how you would how you'd set that up.
Yeah.
And so I was really impressed from a writing point of view, because I don't write mysteries. And I just think it would be really confusing to just set up all the pieces and then mix them up in such a way that you can still solve this mystery and then this mystery, and then still have the big mystery left at the end, and then have this piece that you found 2 hours ago come and be a piece of evidence. And
Interesting.
and I have to say, it's very satisfying when you have, some guy that is guilty and he keeps giving an excuse why he's not, and you do, when you show a piece of evidence that shows he's wrong, it goes objection, and you just feel, and then Miles Edgeworth is kind of aristocratic, very kind of, he had kind of a prideful, and he's not prideful, but he had kind of this look sometimes where he'd shake his shoulders haha, I found you out, and you just felt yeah, I just got him. So it got
Nice.
kind of this visceral. The downside though is sometimes setting up an episode, when you first get started, a lot of talking, just because they have so many pieces to get in place.
So just a lot of text screens.
A lot of text screens, and you walk around and talk to this guy, and you do it for a while, and you just try and get all the pieces. So the beginning of episodes are kind of slow going. As you get about halfway through, then it really picks up and is really quite entertaining.
Okay.
And I'd be willing to play later. And it's so funny because when you make a objection and you prove them wrong, everyone has ridiculous character design.
Okay.
There's this Detective Bad, and he has this trench coat with bullet holes in it and everything. And he looks like he has a cigarette, but when he pulls out, it's like a lollipop. He puts it back in, and he pulls out his mirror and look at himself, and the ridiculous things. But when you prove someone wrong, it's like they were physically hit with a blast of a shockwave. They're like, wow. And so it's kind of ridiculous and kind of fun. The game does not take itself real seriously. There's just characters. So it's a very unique game, and I'm sure I'm the last one to get to this sort of thing, because I know Phoenix Wright is insanely popular.
Yeah.
And I think people have even talked about trying to put, Layton and Phoenix Wright and Phoenix Wright are kind of in the similar puzzly sort of games. Though they're both very different, but quite entertaining.
Now, when you do that, do you find it's easier to sit down and play through a whole episode at a time, or because I'd be worried about forgetting stuff.
It's not too. If you want to wait for a long time, it's kind of hard. They do a pretty good job occasionally as you move to a new scene to kind of reframe the evidence to kind of gently remind you what just happened.
Okay.
And they're still in your evidence. They still have little. You can look at it all again. It gives you details again.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not too bad. And the other nice thing for me is that you can save anywhere, like constantly. So I could just drop it on. So I would play it on Sundays, which is about the only day I had, worth doing it on. So this last Sunday I played it. I said I was in chapter 5, the end, part 1. I'm like, all right. And then I was in the end, part 2. I'm like, oh, I'm almost there. And then I'm on the end, part 3. I'm like, ah. I kept thinking it was almost done. So I played a lot on Sunday.
Yeah, I've been there before.
You feel like you're at the end, but then you start realizing, wow, there's all this stuff I haven't figured out yet. Yeah. So it's a pretty clever game.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's my semi-unconventional for me. So
yeah, that is kind of different. You don't talk about games that often.
I don't. I don't have a chance to anymore. No.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll talk about mine now. So let me set this up for you because it's just like I said, it's an unusual kind of thing. So, somewhat. Since I left the library a few years ago, I haven't really been in touch with what's popular in anime these days. I mean, of course, Naruto and Bleach are still big, but other than that, I really don't have much of an inclination of what the big anime fan base is following. So a friend of mine, Tim, older man of mine, we get together regularly. We wanted to go through a series, but we didn't know what to do. So he has Netflix instant streaming.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we went through and we picked out an episode. Like we just started watching the first episode of random series that they had in there, just things that looked interesting to us, which was fun. But then we came across this one. The description was something about the adventures of a group of immortal alchemists living in the 1930s 1930s gangsters in America.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we gotta check this out. I gotta see what this thing is about. So, the opening of first the opening theme. You see the characters running through and doing stuff, and then they'll pause and on a character and it'll show you their name.
Okay, yeah.
So you're introduced to a bunch of the main characters. Well, I say main characters. They did this for about 20 people in the opening theme, and they're like, these aren't all main characters, are they? And then the first scene in the first episode, there was these two characters. One of them, the vice president of an information gathering agency who wears a monocle. Okay. And his assistant, who's this 9-year-old girl with pink hair. Only in anime.
Only in anime, yeah.
And they're talking in this first scene about where does this story properly begin? Who are the characters that should introduce it? That's the beginning of it.
Nice.
And they debate about who it is, and then at the end they say, well, maybe we could be the ones that actually started. And then you see the episode title. And then the rest of that first episode is this series of intercut scenes, and it's not really sure about how these characters are related to each other. It's very, as we quickly found out, the whole series is told very non-linearly.
Interesting.
It jumps all over the place. And at the end of the first episode, we were like, what is this show about? We were still very unsure. So we gotta check out the second episode now. By the end of the second episode, we had a much better idea that it was largely about, it was jumping back and forth between two events. Sort of the center one sort of being the events that happened on this train called the Flying Pussyfoot. And it doesn't take you long to find out that among the people who were on this, there was apparently some major incident on this train. Because you see it when the train pulls into the station. Okay. And apparently there'd been bodies littered across the track on the way there, and there's something crazy must have gone on, and all these characters are climbing out and telling their friends about. It's oh, I'm glad we made it here and stuff like that. And apparently, as you find out, aboard this train, there was an assassin, well, two assassins, basically, who are both psycho. But you don't necessarily find that about the second one until later. A pair of eccentric thieves who are, absolutely insane. Do you remember the Cowboy Andy from Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah.
These are it's a man and a wife, but they're his dumber siblings.
Oh, wow.
They're completely gung-ho and ridiculous. They're a lot of fun. There's a senator's wife and his daughter. The senator didn't know that they were going to be on this train because the train is also carrying this apparently experimental bomb.
Wow, that's a setup.
Yeah, and there's this immortal kid, and there's also this orchestra. Well, it's not really. It's a cult disguised as an orchestra that want to kidnap the senator's wife in order to force him to release their cult leader who's in prison.
Okay.
So apparently, all these people were on this train.
So it creates. So it's a bomb waiting to explode, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And then so that's kind of the center story. Then there's also this other stuff going on about this series of events with these immortal gangsters that took place a year before, and it's connected. There are some characters who are in both things, but not all of them. So anyway, it kind of jumps back and forth between these, and sometimes some scenes that take place after the incident of the train.
So it's all leading up to the incident? Like you're trying to figure out, like a flash forward sort of thing?
No, it's more like they're. I mean, the second episode was sort of like that.
Yeah.
It was like leading you to realize, okay, there was something big that happened on this train. Yeah. More of the series is much more of these things they just kind of cut back and forth between the two.
Just see things that happen.
Yeah, just see things that happen, and sometimes
do they build on it? I mean, do they kind of reinforce each other in one episode? Like
sometimes they do. Okay. Sometimes it's just more of a. And it's very the kind of the whole conceit of the thing is you kind of come to realize by the end of it, and you see the same guy and the same vice president of information and the girl at the end, and they kind of unpack it, which is really helpful. It's just kind of about how people's lives interconnect, intersect. Because sometimes there's some people that intersect, but there's other people who don't. There's some characters who don't see other characters at all.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of interweaving. And what I found out was that this anime was originally based off of a pair of light novels, which I guess are kind of a thing in Japan. They're like novellas, basically, that are popular among teens, which you would really enjoy.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of things that we were talking about lately.
But I guess the novels, they were originally two separate stories that were published.
Oh, okay.
And then when they made the anime, they just kind of
intertwined them.
Huh. Yeah. So it's really interesting. I mean,
what's it called?
Comparisons to Pulp Fiction never actually named it. The name of the series is called Bacano, which I don't actually know what it means.
Okay.
But it's just Bacano's name of the series about immortal gangsters and alchemists in 1930s America.
Wow.
Very interesting show, and like the comparisons with non-linearity are to that and Pulp Fiction are going to be inevitable.
Which is nice this episode.
Yeah, it's strangely fitting when we wound up here at the Steiner. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone. It gets a little gory in times. Mm-hmm. Like the alchemy in this is more realistic than say in Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like how alchemists actually worked, like kind of consulting dark forces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because like the way they say more, like if a character gets maimed or wounded or something, like the blood will suck back into him.
Fun.
And like the character, like his fingertips get cut off. It's like one of the first times, and like you see the tips fall on the ground, and they just kind of and kind of suck back into place.
That was a nice sound effect.
Thank you. I tried. It's radio. So I mean, it is a little dark, and there's a few too many insane characters. Well, actually, I'll put it this way. I saw one reviewer said that every character in this show is insane, which is true. in some
so
good
everyone's
ways
a little
and bad
unstable.
Ways. Everyone's a little unstable.
Or a lot.
There's some protagonists who are more hero-ish, main character-ish than others, as the little girl says. But there's two in particular who are just insane. Like the Joker would get along fabulously with these guys.
Oh man.
And I could have done with a little bit without some of their stuff. So, like I said, it's not for everybody. But if non-conventional plot structures interest you, it's one to check out.
Sounds interesting.
And like I said, I'd never heard of it, so I don't know how popular it is.
Yeah.
But
cool.
So that's one of those things you could really only find by
randomly going to Netflix.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what they suggest to you now that you've watched that.
Yeah, this is true. That's true. I don't know I don't really know another anime to compare it to, honestly. Now, if you're looking for just sheer randomness, Excel Saga, but that's like, I used to compare that to the anime version of Family Guy. So.
Oh man. Yeah. It's very random.
Yes, very much so. But
we have two very unique take on tales today.
Yeah. Pretty unusual, I think. So, all right, I think this will be kind of a shorter episode,
Yeah.
but nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Occasionally, and so I guess we'll go ahead and close it. You want to? Unless you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. No,
Okay,
not that I can think of.
that's all we got.
That's all we've got.
All right.
We'll just mention yet again. Go watch Once Upon a Time.
Yes.
Oh, you know a take tale I should have had
Oh, what's that?
was Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Oh man, yeah, one of the best riff tracks we've ever
Yeah,
seen.
if you like bad movies and Mystery Science Theater and riff tracks, it really is different than
Yes.
than many of the other ones, and it's hard to explain exactly. The middle is really painful, and the end is just a sort of like heavenly catharsis. I mean,
one of the best finales of any Mystery Science Theater, or like just in terms of sheer insanity.
there's something special about this one.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind popping down the money for Santa and Ice Cream Bunny,
Do it. It's totally worth it.
It's completely worth it. Perhaps at the end we might have to throw a sound effect in, Tim.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're thinking of. Please don't sue us if you get nightmares. That's a good plug-in for riff tracks right there.
Yeah, that's such good. Yep. All right. Well,
All right.
yeah. Contact info.
Yes, we'll close our contact info.
Always visit us on our website at derailedtrainsofthought.blogspot.com. Leave us comments. Our friend Greg has been leaving voluminous comments because he's been catching up. Very nice comments.
Yes.
I actually have not caught up on all of them yet.
Yeah.
Tim's been pretty good at keeping on them.
Yeah, and they're nothing really big enough to talk about here, but we had some nice back and forth about a couple things. So,
And we always love to hear from you. It inspires us to do, well, or different sort of topics. I mean, we're always open to topic things still because our list is actually relatively short right now.
It is, surprisingly. I mean, profanity was one that was suggested to us by Nate quite a while ago, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you can also always email us. Don't want to forget about that. derailedtrains@gmail.com.
And subscribe to us on iTunes.
That's right. So hopefully we'll have some more info by the end of the summer, maybe.
On our project?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
the other project.
I would say my goal is end of the summer, yeah.
What about that other thing?
The other thing? I would think pretty soon they're putting together an official sort of press release thing.
Okay. And notice he said they, so that's kind of a little hints there.
Shield.
Well, that guy in that corner booth looks an awful lot like Nick Fury.
I know,
He's
and
just
it's
missing
kind of
the
scaring
eye patch.
me, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that guy, you don't mess with that guy.
no, he'll pull out a bazooka and he'll take care of business.
Yes, that's true.
Talking about profanity, he's actually a very good person for this.
We should have interviewed him. He should have been here.
He should have been.
I didn't
yeah.
know if I wanted to approach him, though.
Yeah,
Kinda
that's
frightening.
Yeah, that's a very good
Intimidating.
point. Yeah.
All right.
So, Nick, why don't you close us off with your soundtrack?
My
choice?
soundtrack, I have to preface this, actually. And we didn't talk about this in our story school.
Oh yeah.
I had wanted to do the soundtrack back on our rhythm episode, way back, what was that, 4 or 5 or something like that?
Yes. Well, pacing and rhythm.
Pacing and rhythm.
Yeah.
But I decided not to do it because the title basically takes God's name in vain.
Yeah.
And that's one of those profanity we didn't talk about, but no.
Yeah, we don't.
It is.
Yeah, just no.
Just no. Very, very few reasons I think that would be necessary. Possibly if it's kind of a double meaning. Yeah, I'd stay away with it. Personally, I'd stay with it. There's no reason for me.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of fun exclamations,
Yes.
I have to thank Mr. Charles Schultz for introducing things like good grief and rats into my vocabulary very early.
Good grief.
Rats. But anyway, continue.
But this is a percussion-only remix from Chrono Trigger, remixed by Drum Ultima. The part of the title I feel like saying is, it's a dinosaur get in the epic?
Epic.
Epic.
I think you said it was
Yeah.
pronounced.
So,
Guessing, or epoch, or...
Epoch. It looks like Epoch, I think it's pronounced epic. Remix of Drum Ultima from a great song from Chrono Trigger, a very tribal song. It's kind of cool because it's only percussion.
Very cool.
So, enjoy.
Thanks again for listening to Derailed Trains of Thought, your premier storytelling podcast. This has been Tim,
This has been Nick.
and we'll see you next time.
Tell all your friends. Adios.
Bye-bye.